And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us here. We're fastly approaching the top of the next hour. We do want to squeeze, though, this story in. These are the images you watched live on Monday morning of former President Donald Trump there at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at Arlington National Cemetery there across the Potomac in Arlington, Virginia. This was on the occasion of the third-year anniversary of the Abbey Gate Kabul airport ISIS terror attack that killed 13 U.S. service members as the United States was withdrawing from the country after 20 years of war. But in addition, thousands of Afghan civilians were trying to leave the country as well as the Taliban took over. Now, in the meantime, NPR first reported this story yesterday. I'm going to read from the NPR report. They say this: that two members of Donald Trump's campaign staff had a verbal and physical altercation Monday with an official at Arlington National Cemetery, where the former president participated in a wreath-laying ceremony. A source with knowledge of the incident said the cemetery official tried to prevent Trump staffers from filming and photographing in a section where recent U.S. casualties are buried. The source said Arlington officials had made clear that only cemetery staff members would be authorized to take photographs or film in the area known as Section 60. Now, when the cemetery official tried to prevent Trump campaign staff from entering Section 60, campaign staff verbally abused and pushed the official aside. That's according to the source to NPR. Now, here at Live Now, we've gotten a statement in from Arlington National Cemetery. I want to put it up on the screen for you. This is their response. They say this: federal law prohibits political campaign or election-related activities within Army National Military cemeteries to include photographers, content creators, or any other persons attending for purposes or in direct support of a partisan political candidate's campaign. Arlington National Cemetery reinforced and widely shared this law and its prohibitions with all participants. We can confirm there was an incident and a report was filed. To protect the identity of the individual involved, no further information about the incident is being released at this time. Now, we're also learning some new reporting as well from the Associated Press, and I'm reading from the first paragraph of their story on this story today. They say this: that Donald Trump's campaign was warned about not taking photographs before an altercation at Arlington National Cemetery during that wreath-laying ceremony earlier this week to honor service members killed in the Afghanistan war withdrawal. That's according to a defense official who said that to the Associated Press today. Now, I have a lot of questions about this story, and we're going to bring into the conversation our friend, national security analyst and retired Marine intelligence officer Hal Kempfer, who joins me, who hopefully is going to help us make sense of this story. Hal, good to see you. Thanks for making time. This is a delicate story. We want to do it justice here because it does have a he said, she said quality to it. Let's parse through some of that noise here. I guess my first question to you is this: what are the rules? Maybe rules is not the right wording. This is the law on the books. This is U.S. code. What is the law when it comes to photographing or filming in military cemeteries, especially Section 60? Now, you can go into what Section 60 is. From what I understand, this is where our fallen heroes who died in the war on terror, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, this is where they are laid to rest here. What are your first thoughts about this story, Hal? What are those rules or laws?
Well, if I can break it down, first off, with someplace, if you've been to Arlington National Cemetery, it is someplace. It's a very somber place. You know, it's where veterans are laid to rest. Many of them are killed in combat and action, and so there is a certain air about the entire place and a certain somberness that takes place. With that said, we don't want places like Arlington or other places to be used for partisan political activities. You know, the famous military theorist Clausewitz says war is politics by different means. There is no way that you can separate war and politics, and politics will always refer to war. There just really isn't any way to separate those two. And this is a rule to maintain the nature of the particular national monument that we're talking about. So that makes sense. No partisan political activities. The thing about photography, though, I don't know if that's in the law. I have to go back and take a look. That looks
Sure.
like someone made a rule because if you go to Arlington National Cemetery, people are taking videos and pictures all the time there.
Sure.
That's what people do. And the question then becomes, okay, we're in election season. Can Donald Trump go to Arlington National Cemetery? Is that construed if he's simply there as a political event? Some would say yes. And I would turn around and say, well, does the same rule apply to the vice president or the president for that
Sure.
matter? Um, so it's rather interesting. There was some sort of confrontation. The Trump side says that there was no physical altercation. Neither side denies that there was an incident, and it does sound like there was a verbal altercation. But that appears to be an issue. Now, the other
Yeah.
side is Section 60. That's where people are more recently interred,
Right.
and there is a hard rule on that, and I think that's a very good rule. But it's not clear if this was really over Section 60. There seems to be a little difference of interpretation there.
Right. I think the interpretation is somewhat muddled. Is it that you can't take any photo or video at all at Arlington National Cemetery? That doesn't seem to be the case because tourists do it each and every day. Um, but then it goes even further as part of, I believe, the statute that you can't do it in the furtherance of partisan political activities. And so maybe that's where people are threading this needle here. But the Trump campaign says, and these Abbey families said they invited the former president and other officials to be in these photos posed with family members there in Section 60. So, can a family member or a family who has lost a loved one in combat or in this horrible terror attack, just by inviting a partisan person, a political candidate, can that invitation supersede any rules Arlington might have on the books about this? That's what I'm grappling with here.
I was grappling with it too when this thing first came up. I was like, what are you saying? That if you're running for office, you can't go to Arlington National Cemetery? That makes no sense because every office holder, or not every, but most office holders are running for office at some point, or running for reelection or running for another office. So what are you supposed to ban all of them? The other part is the photography issue. Photography is done. Now, of course, one would have to read an intent. Is the intent of the photographer's video that they're going to run this in some sort of political ad or something like that? Now you're really getting into parsing into some of the legalities of it. And I don't know that he wants to run that in an ad per se. I mean, he got the, as you're showing right here, this is probably what, certainly Donald Trump, former President Trump wanted everybody to see was him, basically paying his respects to those who lost their lives in Afghanistan during the pullout.
Yeah.
So he kind of got what he wanted, but it really gets into an issue, I think, of okay, but if the vice president was there laying a wreath and there were White House photographers or whatever there, would that fall under the same rule? And I'm sure they would say, well, no, that's different. And I'd say, well, the vice president's running for president. And I find it rather interesting. The Section 60 issue, I kind of put that aside.
Okay.
If they were trying to go to Section 60, and it looked like they were trying to do photography, that is pretty clear, fast rule. You're not supposed to take photographs in that area. I don't think there's an issue on that. But as far as the wreath part, I do find that there's a lot of room for interpretation either way. Yeah.
Hal, there was a statement by a Trump campaign spokesperson to NPR. Stephen Chung is the Trump campaign spokesperson. He said this to NPR: "We are prepared to release footage if such defamatory claims are made. The fact is that a private photographer was permitted on the premises, and for whatever reason, an unnamed individual, clearly suffering from a mental health episode, decided to physically block members of President Trump's team during a very solemn ceremony." So would it be in the best interest of this story for all sides if the Trump campaign did release that kind of unedited, unabridged video footage that they claim to have here? Should we all see it and see it for ourselves?
I think it's going to get released anyway. I do find it interesting that a Trump campaign official is making a mental health diagnosis like that. That was one that kind of jumped out at me. I go, well, now you're kind of really stepping out there and saying some things that you probably don't want to say. Obviously, there was an altercation. I don't know if there was any partisan feelings one way or the other with the National Cemetery staff. Maybe they had some strong feelings. But the issue is, can a former president, certainly invited by the families to go there, can they go there? And can photographers come in like photographers, like people take pictures all the time? And I think they were trying to, it sounds like they may have been trying to stretch the rules a little bit,
Okay.
maybe deny him this. That's what it kind of sounds like, but I don't want to jump to conclusions.
Yeah, Hal, we have a statement in. Representative Mike Waltz, the congressman from Florida, the Republican there, he posted this on social media today. This is a signed post or letter with some of the survivors of the Abbey Gate attack who were also on hand for this that day on Monday. With this note, I'm going to read it. It says, "We would like to express our heartfelt thanks and appreciation to President Donald Trump for his presence at the recent Section 60 gathering, honoring our children and their fallen brothers and sisters. On the 3-year anniversary of the Abbey Gate bombing, the president and his team conducted themselves with nothing but the utmost respect and dignity for all of our service members, especially our beloved children. We had given our approval for President Trump's official videographer and photographer to attend the event, ensuring these sacred moments of remembrance were respectfully captured, and so we can cherish these memories forever. We're deeply grateful to the president for taking the time to honor our children and for standing alongside us in our grief, offering his unwavering support during such a difficult time. His compassion and respect meant more than words can express." So that was the statement from some of these individuals who are on hand for this, Hal. But Arlington National Cemetery is saying and confirming that there was an incident, and also, though, that a quote-unquote report was filed. Now, I'm not entirely sure if that's an internal report amongst cemetery officials or whether or not that's a police report. Now, if it's a police report, someone is eventually going to see that, and very, very soon, are they not?
I saw the report filed ago, and I have to tell you, their response was what we would call perfect bureaucratese. It meant absolutely nothing, as far as I could tell. They are there. They are a federal land. They are federal land. It's a federal jurisdiction. There would not be local law enforcement report being filed. There could be report with federal law enforcement on site. They may have an internal report that they filed. It could be a mere pro forma thing that they have to do when there's any incident. So it may have very little legal standing in that regard, other than to document or memorialize what actually took place.
I see.
But when they answer that with that, when the report's been filed and stuff, I go, wow, that is really not answering anything. So I got to tell you, I kind of stood back on that. And I go, I've been in government for a long time, and I know some terms you can use to kind of sidestep it. And I go, yeah, that's one of those terms. So there you go. So,
all right, yeah, Hal, I guess there are more questions still than answers about this story. It's not even 24 hours old just yet, and we'll stay on top of it here on Live Now. Hal, thanks so much. We'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
All right, in the meantime here, we do have just some posts on social media from members of Congress. Aaron Blake there at the Washington Post posted this statement from Democratic Congressman Jerry Connolly, who represents Virginia. Now, Connolly's office is calling for this report to be made public of what Hal Kempfer and I were just discussing. So Connolly says this, that I've joined families in grieving at Arlington Cemetery and spent my career ensuring those who served can be buried at our national cemetery. It's sad, but all too expected that Donald Trump would desecrate this hallowed ground and put campaign politics ahead of honoring our heroes. This is a man whose own military generals have disavowed, a man who has called heroes like John McCain suckers and losers, a man who has insulted Gold Star families. His behavior and that of his campaign is abhorrent and shameful. I urge Arlington Cemetery to publicly release all that transpired yesterday so the American people can ensure the ground in which our nation's heroes are buried is not being debased by a man who has no concept of service and sacrifice. We also got a statement in as well on social media from Republican Congressman Mike Waltz there from Florida, and he says this. Let's put that tweet up too. He's been tweeting extensively about this today. We have it there. This is what he said. I'm amazed at the outrage people have over Gold Star families allowing cameras to capture a beautiful ceremony commemorating their loved ones. He goes on to say outrage should be focused on those responsible for the Afghanistan withdrawal, the unnecessary deaths, abandoned allies, return of terrorism, and world chaos that came with it. Well, Senator J.D. Vance was asked about this repeatedly today on the campaign trail, first in Pennsylvania and secondly in Wisconsin today. This is how he responded to a question about this episode in Pennsylvania today. Let's watch.
Hi, Senator. Good to see you again. Ali Novello with CBS News. I have two questions for you. One, could you tell us more about the altercation that happened at the Arlington Cemetery? And two, what does debate prep look like for yourself and for Trump at this time?
Well, I think, first of all, the altercation at Arlington Cemetery is the media creating a story where I really don't think that there is one. There is verifiable evidence. There's verifiable evidence that the campaign was allowed to have a photographer there. There's verifiable, they were invited to have a photographer there. There's verifiable evidence that the families of these poor people who had their loved ones die 3 years ago at Abbey Road, they had, Abbey Gate, those 13 Americans, a lot of them were there with the president. They invited him to be there and to support them. That's not an insult to the memories of their loved ones. They wanted Donald Trump there, and thank God that we have a president who stands with our veterans instead of one who runs away from them. It is amazing to me that you have apparently somebody at Arlington Cemetery, some staff member, had a little disagreement with somebody, and the media has turned this into a national news story. You know what I think our veterans care a lot more about? That Kamala Harris's VP nominee lied about his military service. I think that our veterans care a lot more about that. And the other thing our veterans care a lot more about is that 3 years ago, 13 brave, innocent Americans died, and they died because Kamala Harris refused to do her job, and there hasn't been a single investigation or a single firing. Look, sometimes mistakes happen. That's just the nature of government, the nature of military service. But to have those 13 Americans lose their lives and not fire a single person is disgraceful. Kamala Harris is disgraceful. We're going to talk about a story out of those 13 brave, innocent Americans who lost their lives. It's that Kamala Harris is so asleep at the wheel that she won't even do an investigation into what happened, and she wants to yell at Donald Trump because he showed up. She can go to hell.